Hello everyone, we are the INKON group and we will be presenting the economic integration in a leadership solution. So, I'm Sofia Ramos, these are Blisse, Yantas, Lan Boi Vu, and Rodrigo Steiman. For the outline of our presentation, we will be firstly explaining economic inequality in general in the global north and south, in the BRICS region, and more specifically in Brazil. Then the economic integration policies in Brazil and their evaluation, the suggestions for leaders' adaptation, the INKON's practical implementation plan, followed by the obstacles and solutions, and our conclusion.
For one to understand this topic, you must first understand what economic integration means. Economic integration takes place through internalizing and erasing borders of production, the greatly increased mobility of capital and of transnational corporations, and a deepening of economic interdependence between global north and global south countries. We have to first talk about globalization, which is very linked to the topic in itself. While looking at globalization, we sometimes tend to look at it from a global north country perspective, making it very positive. However, we fail to ask ourselves the following question. Does globalization bring about progress or backwardness, development or underdevelopment, equity or more poverty? Most of the times, globalization has been made at the expense of global south countries. Do you take a minute and ask yourself where your phone comes from or where your clothes are made? They're usually owned by big corporations within global north countries but are manufactured in global south countries. But what's the reason to that? It's due to cheap labor and other costs that are lowered within global south countries. That for itself shows how most of these global south countries are taken advantage of. We'll have the growth of the 1% within the global south countries at the expense of the minor ones, leading to an increased inequality gap within those countries. Some of the examples that we can give is Brazil and India. Economic integration and globalization have led to the growth of certain economies. Within this project, we'll be looking at BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, all countries that used to be looked as underdeveloped countries but are currently thriving economically and are big competitors to Western economies. However, their growth has been at the expense of poor people within their countries, where living standards have been increased but can only be sustained by the 1%. This project will be looking at how economic growth can be spread among the entire population. In order to fully grasp this topic, Sofia will be explaining more, looking at Brazil.
So we chose to specifically analyze inequality in Brazil, and these two clips demonstrate how the majority of the country lives in such precarious conditions.
Tem grupos aqui no Brasil que são praticamente invisíveis para o governo. Eles são negros, são homossexuais, são deficientes físicos e são pessoas de baixa renda, ou seja, pessoas pobres aqui no Brasil. E eles não têm, o governo não dá muita acessibilidade a essas pessoas.
While the corridors of power remain largely closed to Brazil's poor, the country's laws and policies will continue to favour the elite. For example, under the tax system here, the poorest actually pay the most.
Clip number 1 demonstrates how people living in the less developed areas of Brazil do not have any kind of support from the government in order to be able to turn this precarious situation around. It also addresses the issue of how government policies in Brazil tend to favor the elite instead of the poor.
This is São Paulo, Brazil's biggest and richest city. It has a population of 12 million and generates more than 10% of the country's GDP. Despite the wealth, millions here still live below minimum standards, according to a recent official survey. For those living here in the São Paulo Garden neighborhood, the infrastructure is poor and homes are precarious. Last year, this family managed to turn its wooden shack into a brick house, but it was not enough to keep summer rain from getting into the home.
Eita, meu Deus! Tá gravando, vó. Tá gravando.
Uma vez que entrou água aqui, veio até.
When the water comes in, it brings garbage, stones, even a snake I found here. It's a desperate situation.
Suzette Vieira is fortunate to have walls and a roof over her head, even if the house remains poorly equipped and only half finished.
In clip number 2, we can see the fundamental disparity between the richer and poorer areas in São Paulo of Brazil. We can see the slum villagers that are extremely affected by the natural disasters, and their houses are so precarious they do not receive any support from the government to improve their current housing situation.
In terms of economic integration, Brazil implemented a series of policies not only to combat poverty, but also to reduce the rate of inequality in the country. One of the most important was the easy access to public services to low-income people. These services are like the free education and health services. In addition, low tax collection and aid to the financial sector workers are implemented too. With the current minimum salary equivalent to $200, this is the way how Brazil tries to combat this problem today. Additionally, the Bolsa Familia program was created, a social aid program which the government gives financial help according to the number of members per family, so they can have money to subsist on their daily basis. However, if we evaluate the success of these proposals, we can deduce that they do not turn out as expected. Despite the fact that in 2014, Brazil reduced considerably its level of poverty, it is today the country with the greatest economic inequality in all Latin America. Additionally, despite giving easy access to public services such as economic income, essential services such as health, education, and pension system have a very poor quality, which makes all the money that the government invests completely unnecessary. The best way to see this is through this graph, which shows us in what year the countries of South America are expected to end poverty with the blue bar and extreme poverty, that is the Turkish bar. And with that graph, we can see that Brazil, with its current policy, lags behind other countries such as Argentina, Chile, Peru, or Uruguay, that he even doesn't appear on the list.
Having considered the shortages and policies regarding lower-income households' needs, INKON will be making some suggestions for leaders using situational approach, skills approach, possible theory, and transformational theory. We suggest that business leaders in Brazil could work out ways to narrow the economic gap within their organizations through showing their thorough understanding of the nation's political and economic situation, finding ways to boost up their subordinates' motivation at work and giving them appropriate rewards for that. First, by rounding up employees from lower income households, leaders could support this group of employees by increasing the minimum salary, which is around $200 per month at the moment, to around $300 per month, which is the nation's standard of living wage. This could help increase the buying power for these employees, bring them out of extreme poverty, and promote economic inclusion throughout the entire organizations and the community as well. Second, to tackle the problems regarding poor education and high retirement funds investment, leaders can consider transferring the pensions investment of employees who are leaving the company before their contract expires to the company's education fund, which is used to fund education of highly intelligent children of the remaining employees in the company. While the retirement fund for the mature employees in the company remains secured, the growing youth population would be helped to have better education, financially sustain themselves in the future, and participate in the nation's economy. Leaders rely on their problem-solving skills, social judgment skills, and knowledge to make our subordinates feel more secured with many insecurities in the nation's policies by carrying out these rather supportive actions. So by bringing these considerations to the stakeholders' consideration or attention, leaders could make changes from within their company and hopefully in dominoes affect the local company's decision in considering similar strategies to narrow the economic gap that's widening in Brazil as well.
In order for the suggestions to be implemented smoothly, we've identified the key stakeholders necessary for the smooth implementation of our plan. Within the company will be the Human Resources Department responsible for the pension planning, the CFO responsible for the financial plan, the CEO for the final and strategic decision making, Investors Relations responsible for investments decisions, the employees, which are the plan participants, and within the educational system, the Ministry of Education. So, for the practical implementation of our plan, the first step will have to be increase the minimum salary to living wage. The Human Resources Department will have to propose this increase in salary to living wage of lower income household employees. The CFO would then need to present a plausible financial plan that weights out the cost benefits in the plan. The CEO should then approve this increase. For the second suggestion being investing the remaining percentage of annual retirement fund in education, the Human Resources Department will have to redesign the pension plan to increase the period of break clause in order for the employee to receive the matching percentage of the company. The CEO would then need to approve and communicate the change within the company to the employees. The third step being an investment in education, the Investors Relations Department will have to communicate the investment plan to the Ministry of Education, which will lead to the CFO then needing to plan the percentage of funds.
Possible obstacles and solutions for the implementation plan. Firstly, for the minimum wage increase. If the CFO finds out that costs will be greater than the benefit for the company. While for the pension fund, not enough employees leaving the company before the time frame of the break clause, or not enough employees participating on the company pension plan. Finally, for the company's education investments, a possible obstacle when thinking about Brazil is the corrupt government. How to deal with the minimum wage obstacle. CEO will use a skills approach to decide how he will manage and communicate the implementation of this new change to other relevant stakeholders, especially by utilizing his social judgment skills, by firstly explaining that it will be a CSR opportunity, which is something good for the company for helping the lower income households. Next solution for the pension fund. HR manager will use a path goal theory to motivate new employees coming to the company by providing this pension plan, which will guarantee 100% of benefit if the employee completes a time frame in the contract, as well as selecting specific behaviors that are best suited to the new employee needs and work situation. Additionally, the same leader will use a theory to motivate the current followers, in this case, the current employees, by increasing the company's minimum wage to living wage. Lastly, to deal with the government, the investment relations manager will need to use a situational approach, and they will constantly monitor the donation transactions and their effects. If something changes, he will need to be flexible towards how to deal with the problem and choose a best leadership style to deal with the government. In conclusion, we've integrated the theories and approaches in our relevant company stakeholders by using different approaches depending on the position of the leader and the task. Path goal theory will be used by the HR manager for the increase in salary. This will make more employees participate on the private company's pension plan and will give them more opportunity to save money. Situational approach will be used by the investments relation manager for the private company investment in education, as a higher portion of the population will have the opportunity to be educated with a high school degree, and there will be an increase in the percentage of skilled workforce in Brazil, giving an extra opportunity for foreign companies to explore in the country. Also, more job opportunities for the people from lower social classes, which leads to more money flowing in the economy to be spent in public goods and services. Therefore, economic growth and less inequality. Thank you very much.